You're sitting around a table with some Spanish-speaking friends. You want to say something about one of them, but suddenly you freeze up. You can't remember which verb conjugation to use. If this has ever happened to you, I'm going to show you a simple study hack for memorizing verb conjugations in a way that you can actually remember them in real conversations, even in high-pressure situations. Let's dive in. So let's start with the weakness of the way that most people study verb conjugations. The default way to do this is to start by memorizing lists like this. Yo soy, tú eres, él es, nosotros somos, ellos son. So there's a problem here. Even if you do successfully memorize the entire list, what happens when you go out to try to have a real conversation? All these forms blend together in your head. And there's a reason for that. Your brain isn't designed to remember lists. It takes a lot of effort to sort through the list in your mind, especially when you're under pressure. But what your brain is really good at is remembering where things are. And that's today's hack. You can actually memorize verb conjugations in a way that your brain actually likes to remember things. To explain this memory hack, let me show you why it works so well. Our brains are deeply wired to remember places and positions. This is called spatial memory, and it's one of the strongest ways to remember anything long term. Let me give you an example. So think about the last time that you sat around a table with some friends or family. See if you can picture it in your mind or close your eyes and imagine that you're there. Here's the question. Where were people sitting around the table? The chances are, if there were up to about 6 or 7 people, you can probably remember exactly where everyone was sitting. That might sound boring, but it's actually super powerful. It's not like you sat down and tried to memorize everyone's positions, but you can still remember that Emily was across from you, Carlos was to your right, and your cousins were at the far end of the table. That's the power of spatial memory. But now let's compare that to trying to remember a list of who was there. It's weird, but that's actually harder to do than to remember where everybody was. Your brain is much better at accessing positions than accessing names on a list. So let's make use of that. We're going to use that power of spatial memory to remember Spanish conjugations. So here's what we're going to do. Instead of trying to memorize a long list of conjugations, we're instead going to arrange the conjugations as if there are people sitting around a table. So imagine that you and a few other people are having dinner. Maybe it's your soon-to-be in-laws from Colombia. This is basically from your point of view, so at the bottom center, we're going to put you yourself, or yo soy. Directly across the table from you is your partner, who represents tú eres. To your left is your partner's sister, which is ella es. To your right are your partner's parents, who represent ellos son. All right, that's almost everyone. So now we have a place for the first person singular, the second person singular, the third person singular, and the third person plural. Next, right next to you, let's say you brought your own parents to the dinner. These represent we, or nosotros somos. So the trick here is to get used to memorizing verb conjugations using this layout instead of just a list. This makes everyone's positions meaningful, and you're more likely to remember them when you need them. The beauty of mnemonics like this is that we're using something that our brains love, spatial memory, to learn something that our brains don't love, which is lists of verb conjugations. Thousands of our students have used this exact technique to finally memorize all the conjugations of the most important verbs in Spanish, after years of trying and failing to memorize lists. Now you might be thinking, okay, so if I want to use this study hack, do I really need to sit down and draw a bunch of stick figures sitting around a table? No, you don't have to, although some of our students do like to do that. But to get started, you can actually just do what you're already doing to memorize verb conjugations. Just change the layout. Start arranging things in a circle instead of a list. Let's demonstrate this with some conjugations of estar. So we'll start by writing yo estoy at the bottom. Next, the person in front of you is tú estás. Then we're gonna go the person to the left, él or ella está. Then a couple of people on the right, ellos están. Then finally add your own friends at the bottom next to you for nosotros estamos. With this method, verb conjugations become part of a mental map, something you can really visualize. All right, that's just an intro to how this technique works. To make the conjugations stick, you might also want to combine this with some funny stories and mnemonics that are going to make the conjugations themselves more vivid and memorable. The good news is we've already done the work for you. Our Spanish in 1 month challenge includes illustrated memory palaces of some of the most important verbs in Spanish. The course lays everything out the way that we did in this video so that you can stop memorizing lists of conjugations and actually remember things the way that your brain wants you to remember them. The 1 month challenge is a 30-day boot camp in core Spanish. It's focused entirely on the most common verbs, as well as those tricky little words like lo and le. All of them taught using the same memory hacking techniques designed for long-term fluency. We use clear visuals, guided drills, and active practice that actually works. By the end of the challenge, you won't just remember verb conjugations, you'll be using them with confidence. So if you're ready to make Spanish conjugations second nature, click the link in the description to join our next 1 month challenge. And then subscribe to this channel for more study hacks that'll get you speaking Spanish fluently faster than ever.